Welcome to day 18 of our month-long video challenge. The top of the dresser did a lot better than I expected it would do, but it's definitely not up to the quality that I would want for a piece that I'm selling to someone. So I am going to go ahead and redo the top of this piece. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and take this mirror off, and then I'm going to sand down the top, and I probably will put more stain on it to try and match the bottom before I put a finishing coat on it. I've got it about halfway sanded now. It's taken me about 30 minutes to be able to do that. I am trying to be very careful along the edges of the dresser. The wood top does have a veneer laid over it instead of being a solid piece of wood, and I do not want to eat through the veneer. That is an extreme pain. So I'm using 120 grit sandpaper, being extremely cautious, and it hasn't taken too long to get to the halfway point. I was able to get the top all the way sanded down, and it took me about an hour, so that's not too bad. I also took breaks in between there. But you can see that even though I've got the surface and the stain taken off, there is still staining from whatever ring, but you can see where it has kind of damaged the wood. I do think I should be okay to do just a regular stain on it instead of a gel stain because it is light enough and we are going with a darker stain on it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take one of these drawers with me to the hardware store, and we're going to find a stain to match this. I did end up going with this Minwax Antique Walnut color. I think it's a pretty good match to what is on the dresser itself, especially when I was comparing the drawer in the light in the hardware store along with this color. Now, I was leaning for something a little bit lighter just in case, so that way if I wanted to get a darker stain color, I could layer this more, or I have some other stain colors that I could mix into it to make it a little bit lighter. I just didn't want to go too dark because that gets harder to fix. This is an oil base with a poly mixed into it, so it's a one-step process. And I went with this just because it's quicker to get done and because it was a little less expensive when you combine the two rather than buying a whole thing of stain and a whole thing of finish. Now I have wiped this down to clean it really well, and I'm gonna go ahead and start applying the stain on it. I've got a natural bristle brush so that I can use it with an oil-based stain. And this is one that you do not have to wipe off. And we have our first coat of stain on. This does need to cure for 6 hours before I can do a second coat on it, but I think the color's matching pretty well. I do want it to be a little bit darker. We will see with the second coat if it gets it to where I want. If not, we will do a third coat and maybe mix in just a tiny bit of darker pigment into it. But so far, I can say this 2-in-1 poly and oil stain has been my absolute favorite application so far when it's come to staining something. It went on so smoothly. The color is very consistent, and I love that it also has the finishing coat in it. So thumbs up for the stain and poly mix. Okay, now I've got my brush and some mineral spirits, and we will leave this here overnight, and then we will clean our brush in the morning and do our second coat tomorrow. Now don't worry, I am not planning on sleeping in that room tonight while it's going through the process of drying. We will let that cure as fully as we can before we put our second coat on it. I've been sending update pictures to the buyer as I've been working on it, and she's super excited for it to get done. So I will try and finish this up tomorrow so that it has time to cure before they pick it up next week. I will also be working on the drawer pulls tomorrow, getting them prepped, and then also painting them black. Thank you for joining me for day 18 of our month-long video challenge, and I will see you tomorrow.